Three, two, one, and we are live with John Ward. John, how are you, my man? How you
I'm very
going?
well, very well, thanks. Doing well this side of in South Africa, the opposite
Yeah,
side of the world to you. Very
yeah.
early
How's
there for
life?
you.
Yeah,
It's
it's
getting a
very
little
early.
bit into the night, into the evening, yeah, where I am. But yeah, actually very good. Thanks for the invitation. I'm delighted to be on your show.
Hey, man, it's nice to have you on my show. I mean, you are knee deep in research on Mars, which is not the planet that we live in right now.
No,
And
possibly in the future, who knows?
possibly in the future, and I think I'll probably be the first one queued up to go live on Mars. I think it's such a fun thing to be part of, like creating something new, right?
Yeah, like
Um,
pioneering, yeah.
yeah, exactly. How did you get into studying what's going on Mars? How did that start for you?
Well, yeah, it starts off with me searching for a really cool background for my desktop. And I was looking for a cool space scene with a nice spaceship. So I was Googling and I came across this funny cigar shaped object with these geodesic domes on it. And then I went into a bit more detail, and it was an illustration of a photograph that Gary McKinnon was downloading when he hacked into the NASA computers. And the security team over at NASA recognized that that IP address looks unfamiliar, so they cut his connection. So I downloaded about halfway, three-quarters of this photograph of this weird cylinder-shaped object with the domes on it. And then I started delving into the secret space program, because then I was curious to find out more. And as time went on, my YouTube feed started suggesting Mars anomalies. And I started watching these videos. Will Ferrar was one of those. Mars Anomalies and Beyond, Art Alien TV. Started watching their stuff, and I thought to myself, you know what? I can download these photographs and start analyzing them myself. And I started doing that. And eventually I started finding really weird stuff. And then I said, no, let me start sharing this with people, and the best would be on YouTube. So I bought myself a webcam, microphone, started very small. And if you watch my earlier videos, they aren't really good production value as they are now, because Brian, you know Brian Corrie-Dobbs, he approached me and we rebranded my whole social media. So if you watch my intros and outros of my new videos, you'll see a heavy Dobbs touch to these
Yeah, Brian
videos.
Corey Dobbs. He is, the creator of Blue Planet Red. It's on Amazon. If anyone's listening hasn't watched it, please do. It's a very amazing documentary about how Mars used to be like Earth. It was blue, and it had a lot of life on it, and then it turned red and got all this rustic, and it's left behind a lot of images and reminiscence and evidence of life, ancient life on Mars, whether it's caves, water-created caves, or microbial life, or it's structures on Mars, whether it's pyramids and ancient structures, UFOs and aliens and whatnot. And that's what I guess has got this whole new era of researchers like yourself, very much, I guess, fascinated and curious about what actually did happen on Mars and what are all these structures on the Mars. And it just makes for really good content on YouTube, on podcast. We know there's a big push for humanity becoming multiplanetary species, getting on Mars. Elon Musk is driving that with SpaceX. I'm sure they're having a lot of conversations about how they do that, and NASA in terms of, when we get there, how do we preserve, how do we research, how do we find, and how do we, build forward as well. So I think it's when I heard about you and when Brian mentioned your YouTube channel, I was like, yeah, man, I really need to get Jean on the show.
Thank you. Big compliment, thanks. Yeah, so what Brian's doing is he's pulling together as many independent researchers as possible so it can form like a coalition, collaboration. He calls it the Mars Disclosure Team. He's trying to get this momentum going. And eventually, hopefully, we get the ear of Congress in the United States so that we can start testifying about these things. Just like there are now the UAP disclosure, he's aiming to possibly do that in the near future, and it might happen.
It's
Because,
I think
yeah.
it's going to happen because we are living in this age of disclosure now. I think humans are having a very fascinating experience on Earth right now about why are we here, what's happened in the past, what can we learn more, what can we disclose from governments that they don't want to disclose. I'm sure if you look into classified information, there is much more we know about Mars than the public is aware of. The Congress has done a really good job in trying to disclose a lot of these UAP projects. Congresswoman Anna Paulina Luna has done a really good job in leading those kind of disclosures, and I feel like at some point we are going to get to Mars, and there's going to be a lot of disclosure about what really went on Mars. How did we lose the atmosphere? Was there ancient civilizations? Um, you know, is is the Atlas you know, so asteroid or alien ship that's in our solar system, is it here to return back to Mars? Is it there to drop these probes and study what actually happened, how they lost this planet before? I think that's going to be one of the most exciting things. I hope next year, we can see something going on in terms of, more disclosures on Mars. And you do a pretty great job at disclosing these things, and it's always fun that before we are part of it before it becomes mainstream. That's what I enjoy.
Yeah, it's absolutely fascinating. When you look at these artifacts, you question yourself. I mean, this is strange. If you look at the ancient structure on Mars, you can 10 to 1, if you do some research, find an analog to something similar here on Earth. So it's sort of like a mirror. You're looking at something very ancient on Mars and then something a little more modern, in inverted commas, here on Earth, like the pyramids and some of the other things that we'll be talking about in this podcast. When it comes to 3-Hour Atlas, that's a very interesting topic. I mean, if you look at what Avi Loeb's been publishing on his Medium, he's been speculating about this object for quite a while now, and it's got something like 12 or more anomalies, which are totally contrary to the belief of a conventional comet. So this thing is anomalous on its own. And is it deploying probes? We can have a look at something in this presentation. If you want to look at 3-Hour Atlas, we can start with it. There's
Yeah,
some
we should do
really
that.
intriguing
I think that's
evidence
where,
that it may have dropped
yeah.
off probes as it was passing Mars on the 3rd and 4th of October of this year.
Yeah. Yeah. So, I mean, what do you know about 3i Atlas? Where
Well,
is it come from, and what is it actually doing? And what are the anomalies?
the anomalies are its odd color. It looks like it's burning some type of nickel compound, which gives it this bluish color. And there's a very low iron content, as far as I understand, which is not like a normal comet. Then it's got an anti-tail pointing towards the sun at all times. It's like a shield, you could say, that's protecting this object from the solar wind and the radiation of the sun. And Avi Loeb speculates those might be little nanoparticles that are also absorbing interstellar or intersolar particles and possibly replicating or converting that material into something that the larger object can use. Look, it's very speculative, of course. And then it's also got these strange smaller objects that shoot off. When it was passing Mars, it looks like it shot off a couple. And when it went around the sun and it was approaching Venus, it looks like it shot off a couple of these very fast-moving objects. That could be probes. He speculates this thing could be probing us. And then it's got some other weird anomalies like that long exhaust plume. It doesn't look like a conventional comet's tail. It looks more like gas that's venting off quite a high speed. And it's got 3 or 4 of those longer tails, not just the one that you'd expect from a comet. And then that came in at a very low trajectory into our solar system at about 5 degrees on the ecliptic plane, I think they call it, which is very unusual as well. And it originates in the same direction as that wow signal that they detected in the 70s. These are just a couple of the strange anomalies. And the ones that really intrigue me are those that show these funny little probes, possibly, that were deployed. And I've got photographs of those that we'll go through.
Yeah. I mean, I'd love to look at some of those photographs as well. For a comet to have so much activity, it's quite rare. It can't be a comet if there's a lot going on. If it's just a comet, it's either the aliens taking the piss,
Yes.
or they're really serious about coming into Earth and they're studying the solar system. And one of the fascinating things about Avi Loeb and everybody else that's studying this, it's, I always question, we're studying these alien type objects that are not from our solar system with the limits of physics and science that we understand of the universe.
Correct.
Right? So we are making those comparisons based on the knowledge that we have, but we also are aware that there is so much limited knowledge we have about how the universe works, how there might be civilizations that are millions of years ahead of us. If you look at the timeline of the origination of the universe and how long we've been around. So these alien civilizations may be operating at a level in terms of how they, move around solar systems and the sun and the energy and what they're doing, and it's maybe like millions of years beyond what we understand.
They could be using a technology totally foreign to what we're familiar with. That's what makes it so intriguing as well, because if it is deploying thrusters or jets to keep it on a certain trajectory or angle going out of the solar system, it should run out of gas at some point in time, but it's not. So these things might be consuming particles and generating energy for this thing to continue venting these jets. We don't know. It's fascinating, actually. So I don't know. When would you like to start the presentation, Adnan?
Yeah, go for it.
Okay, let's start up the share. Right. So let's get going. I created a nice animation for us. Right, there's a photograph taken of 3i Atlas recently, showing 3 jets towards the right-hand side, the longer one and then the 2 smaller ones. And on the opposite side of it, pointing towards the sun, we've got an anti-tail or 2. And that thing's about 1 million kilometers long. So you can imagine how long those exhaust plumes are. Those are millions of kilometers long. And they look like gas. They don't look like a conventional tail that you'd see on a comet that's sort of consistent. It's got these
Yeah.
puffs of like
Yeah.
smoky material. And this thing rotates. So I'd expect this to be more spread out. But these 3 or more tails persist, indicating that this thing might be pulsing. Every time it gets to a certain orientation, it will fire thrusters. That's why these things remain so well defined. That's just a hypothesis that Avi Loeb has. And
Yeah.
then, if you look at a photograph released by NASA in a press conference on the 19th of November, they give us this huge nothing burger, if we can call it that, a very blurry image where you can see hardly any detail. It's very fuzzy and blurry. And this is from their high-resolution, high-rise camera. You can't see any stars or galaxies in the background like you would from a conventional camera. They claim this is a crop from a larger photograph. And if you go to the high-rise website and you look at the source that they claim they cropped this image from, those photographs are absolutely useless. They are full of random noise, and you can't make out any detail. So that's very strange. They claim it's due to jitter. The craft jittered at the time it took this photograph. So because it's so far out and this thing zooming in so close, it blurred the image with a couple of pixels, and that's why you get this very blurry, fuzzy image. So it was a real nothing burger, actually, if you look at it. Then on the 3rd and 4th of October, not just the high-rise on board the Mars Reconnaissance Orbiter photographed through our atlas, but also the Mars Perseverance rover. It took a sequence of about 20 to 24 photographs in about a half an hour span of the Martian sky where 3R Atlas was located. And it shows, if you look at these photographs, thin little lines. There's about 9 of them. If you go through the sequence of these 20 or 24 photographs. So yeah, I'm just showing you 21, 24. I started taking photographs on the 4th of October. And then the last photograph was taken 21, 33. So it's actually less. It's about 8 minutes. But anyway, I created an animation of those slides. And I would have liked to show that to you, but to conserve time, I'm going to show you one of those photographs out of the sequence that I downloaded to show you those objects. Yeah, I've converted it to grayscale. And you'll make out these long, thin lines. They're all about the same length and about the same thickness. And there's 9 of them that I saw in the 20 photographs. And if you take a close-up zoom, you can see these things are traveling at one heck of a speed. They're not cylindrical in shape. This is caused by a blur on the CCD, these long, thin lines. And they're all traveling at about the same speed. So these are small little objects, because Avi Loeb also suggested we've got to look at what happens when it passes Mars. Is it going to deploy probes? And this is what I speculate these photographs show. There you can see another one. And then in that same photograph towards the right, there's 2 more. And you can see same length, same width, same brightness. So that was very intriguing. So it was disappointing to see the high-rise photograph, because I was going to see are there smaller objects around this thing? Are there smaller objects that are accompanying this larger one as it's passing all these planets? And unfortunately, it has no detail, so you can't make those out. But there's another very nice photograph that was taken by Michael Jaeger, Riemann, and Prosperi, which from Earth, which shows the 3i Atlas with its distinct exhaust plumes, the anti-tail. But what's interesting is it also shows 4 or 5 of those similar thin lines that the Perseverance photographed on the 3rd and 4th of October. And these things are shooting away from 3i Atlas towards, I speculate, Venus. If you take a close-up look at that photograph and at those lines, there's about 5 of them.
Wow.
But we can't say if this was possibly a satellite that passed between the telescope and the object, and it left these blurry lines. But then you'd expect to see one line, but yeah, you can see there's about 5 distinct objects. And then also towards the right, it seemed to have shot something off towards the right. And if you take a closer look, you can also see that same characteristic thin white line. So was it deploying probes as it passed Mars, and then as it got close to Venus, you know? So that's why we must check now when it gets closer to Earth, if we see these long, thin lines indicating smaller objects being shot off away from 3i Atlas at a heck of a rate of knots, you know?
Yeah.
So that's the evidence that I have that 3i Atlas might be deploying something. But further study obviously will be required to make a conclusion for sure.
Do you think from all of this images that we're seeing and the study that's been done so far that there are actually human-like aliens in this probe, which is 3i Atlas, or do you think it's completely run remotely, or it's autonomous with AI in it? What are your early thoughts? Because it looks like it's generating a lot of energy, and speed, and I wonder whether a human-like alien can survive in such a alien ship.
Also, the extended journey that it took from its original point to where it is now, if it was traveling at its current speed, it would have taken light years to get here. So I speculate that it is some type of artificial intelligence, perhaps. And it's been programmed to do a mission, just like we would do with our probes that orbit Mars, Venus, Jupiter, Saturn, deploying probes, like landers and rovers. I think, and many of us think, that this thing is actually powered by some type of artificial intelligence, perhaps. Because humans, I don't know if they'd be able to survive such a long journey. Maybe. We don't know. It's possible.
That's why I think, the robots that we are building now, Optimus by Tesla, and many others, I think are going to be very vital in missions we do on Mars and other planets. Because they can travel for a long time, they have human-like intelligence, they'll communicate back with humans, they'll collect data, they have hands, they can dig stuff on Mars, they can, if there are anomalies, they can actually really go on site and do that and not worry about oxygen and all the other challenges humans experience, like food, for example, right?
Yes.
They're on a 6-month journey to Mars, there's not a lot of food that you can eat that's, that we enjoy on Earth. You
Yes.
can't carry a lot of milk with you, for example. Milk expires.
Mm.
You can't have pizza. That's for sure.
Yes.
But yeah, it looks very fascinating, and it's the question is what is it, what data is it collecting, and
Mm.
how is it returning that data to its source location, and what are they wanting to do with that data? Are they looking for Earth-like planets? Is that what they're looking? Are they wanting to study the star and the sun and do their calculations based on, whatever is of value to them based on the measurement of the sun and the energy that the sun is producing? Maybe it's about energy. They're looking to harness the energy in the universe. Um, yeah, it's an interesting one.
Yeah, there were huge coronal mass ejections as 3R Atlas was passing closest to the sun, towards 3R Atlas. Huge, 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 like CMEs. And those were very unusual as well. So it's almost as if it attracted that energy out of the sun. It's the strangest thing. Look, we don't know. It might even be seeding life forms, for all that we know, as it's going past these planets. That's another theory, that it could be seeding the planets as it's passing us in the solar system. Who knows
Yeah.
what it's doing? And that gas, at some point, Earth is going to go through that gas cloud that it's emitting as well. And what's in that gas? We can
Yeah.
only imagine, right?
How are we gonna experience that gas on Earth, and what is it gonna look like, and do we have plans to study that gas?
Well, Avi suggested that we deploy uh, Juno. I think it's the Juno probe that they want to crash into Jupiter. He
Uh-huh.
said, give it a last breath of life and get it to chase this thing down and see if we can't get some measurements. Or is it
Yeah,
Juice? I think it's Juno.
it's a bit crazy and disappointing that we don't have probes on demand to shoot off in space and study things that come into our solar system, you know? We're just sitting here and looking at images, whereas we have all these resources in the world, and everyone wants to find out if the aliens exist. And here is a thing that is in our solar system, and we're not shooting stuff in space, and we're trying to rebuild an old satellite and trying to shoot it off in space. We should be having these things, and I wouldn't be surprised that all these governments that are already operating in space are already having private and secret drones that are being shot to go and study this and gather information and use that information for their own commercial gain and return, or military gain or return. I wouldn't be surprised if everyone's doing that already.
Yes.
And they're
Look,
using NASA to push out images to distract us in talking about these things, and while they're busy doing something else with us.
correct. That's the secret space program. And Dr. Joseph Farrell talks about that quite extensively.
And
And
Avi Loeb as well is an interesting character. He used to be a Mossad agent in the Israeli spy agency, and so it's like, why is this guy pushing this thing so hard?
yes,
What has the Israel has to do with this? It's always interesting to ask, explore.
yeah, if you're familiar with Werner von Braun, who came over to America in Operation Paperclip after the Second World War, he ran NASA for a while, and on his deathbed, he told his personal assistant, I think her name was Rosenberg, that there's going to be 5 or 6 things that are going to happen. And one of them
Yeah.
is going to be a threat from space, asteroids, comets, etc. And the other one will be a fake alien invasion.
Yeah.
So could they be prepping us for a red flag, a false flag, a black swan event. Because remember in the States during November of last year, there were all these drones over New Jersey and no one knew what was going on. And Trump came out and said, well, he knows what's happening. It's nothing to worry about. But nothing more was said. So are they testing us to see if we're ready for an announcement of an alien invasion? That's the other
Yeah.
hypothesis.
Hmm.
There was also Lou Elizondo with the To the Stars Academy in 2018-19 that was also pushing this alien threat narrative.
Mm-hmm.
And I think they're still pushing it in Congress that UAPs are a threat
Yeah.
because they observe military exercises with impunity. That's all about money, I suppose, as well. And then
Yeah.
there's whistleblowers that have testified about Solar Warden, which is a secret space program with massive craft out in space patrolling our solar system. These are all things that are being said, but until we see it, we can't know for sure. So maybe, yes, they've studied this thing already, and they're just feeding us little drips and drips and not
Yeah.
disclosing anything.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, the thing that's very fascinating and interesting with UAP activity is they always like to fly around nuclear facilities. They seem to have some sort of obsession about nuclear, whether they're interested in, unlocking the nuclear codes and blowing up the world. That's probably, if you think about how we may have burned the Mars atmosphere, it may have been a huge nuclear activity that went on. Um, and that's there's also this idea that UAPs are just a different type of species that live on Earth and they exist in a different dimension, and we get to see them while they're traveling and through these objects that nobody seem to understand what it is, and it's very funny and satire and laughable when the Pentagon comes out and says, "Oh, we just don't know what these objects are." It's like, what do you mean by you don't know? You have the most resources in the world to know exactly every single thing that moves, you know, on Earth and on space. And how can you have these objects in New Jersey in the sky for 30 days and no one's getting close to it to understand what it is? Or you either know or you are dumb as, as a
Yes.
monkey
And
jungle, like,
if they were a threat, why weren't they shot down?
yeah,
It's like
exactly.
that.
Yeah,
It's like that huge balloon from China that
yeah,
crossed
yeah,
the
yeah, yeah.
United States with these huge cameras and equipment on board, and then eventually they shot it down after it traversed the whole United States from west to east, and then they shot it down eventually.
Mm,
No, a lot of things are happening that we won't understand. I guess knowledge is power, especially ancient knowledge. They see it as a very powerful commodity, and they hold on to it. And I don't think they'll easily disclose all this information that they have at their disposal.
mm.
So yeah, what can we do? We can check, we can see what's going on, we can get familiar with what's happening. So when it does, it doesn't shock us.
Yeah, yeah.
But yeah,
Definitely something going on that they're not telling us for sure. Because, we have a lot of technology that we've used with the dishes to study the closest black hole. There's a really cool documentary about it on Netflix, how they used all this technology to create this image of what a black hole looks like. If you remember that sort of announcement to the world, there is a black hole and it's this big, and this is how we've come up to, create that image. So we can very clearly use that kind of technology to study 3i atlas and get very close to it, and really create a real-time image of what it looks like, and its shape, its size, the material it's being used, and what is it emitting, and what is it consuming, and what sort of unusual activity that it's doing, and what it's shooting. And I feel like we have that technology, um, but there's definitely selective information that's been put out there.
Yeah, that's so typical of what NASA does too. And I mean the other space agencies too, to be fair. They release all these photographs to us, the public, with a little title, nondescript title for the photograph, when it was taken, how it was taken, blah, 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 with no analysis. And then when you download this photograph, you go through it and you see all these anomalies that they can clearly see for themselves too, but they won't divulge any information. They won't even speculate as to what those things might be. And then, they leave it up to us, I guess, to talk about these things and to do the disclosure, if you could call it that, to the public. It's a plausible deniability sort of methodology that I think they're following.
Yeah.
Because remember, they've dug themselves into a very deep hole by always denying everything. So for them to come out and say something now would be like very difficult for them. How are they going to defend all those potential lies that have been telling us over the decades?
Yeah.
If they come forward and admit something now.
Yeah, I think there is a very smart system in place in media to counter any good argument with another argument that they always have. Danny Jones just did a podcast with a 90-year-old retired astronaut that landed on the moon, and I guess a researcher who has been debunking the moon landing, right?
Mm-hmm.
You listen to that argument, it's like, the closer we get into an argument where we have enough evidence to conclude that the moon landing was fake, NASA has this kind of like well-established way of responding to that and shutting down anything that might pop up. But they are losing that argument, and people are getting much more closer to understanding. Our understanding of these things it seems to be much more believable than how NASA would look at it. Hopefully, with their new administrator, Jared Isaacman, we can take NASA into a new era of how we study these things, how we prioritize what we need to be doing, and how the public has access to information. But again, NASA is also, a government-funded agency, and so they have to play the politics of, keeping America as a superior nation, the leader of the free world. So there's a lot of information that they have to decide what's secret, what's for military, what's for public interest, what's for commercial interest, and they have to kind of work through that, and I think he will prioritize a lot of partnerships and alliances with private companies to accelerate NASA's mission on in space, but it will still, still publicly funded agency, and they have to feed the machine that the American machine is, from a military perspective, government perspective, geopolitics perspective, public interest, science, commercial interest, all of that stuff, right?
And intelligence.
Intelligence as
They're
well.
a major intelligence agency too, if you ask me. But they're all
Yeah.
military for sure. That they had their roots in military. Off the paperclip with those rockets and things that Werner von Braun and his team were building when they got going with the space program in the States. So obviously it's a military organization. and an intelligence organization, and then you have the Space Force that was recently established as well. So these are
Yeah.
all sort of distractions, I think. There's a lot more going on, in my opinion, if you're familiar with the secret space program and what people like Dr. Joseph Farrell and them have testified about. Yeah, dude, there's so much going on. Do you want to get into our Mars anomalies?
Yeah, let's do that. Well, thank you for
Okay.
the Atlas presentation.
You're welcome, man.
That was fascinating.
Adnan, can we take a short body break?
Yeah, let's do that. Yeah, we'll take a break and we'll be back. All right, we are back. Take it away, John.
Right. Okay. Thanks, Adnan. To start off with, I'll be showing you a couple of pictures of rice farms or rice paddies photographed here on Earth, as well as fish farms. For some context, when we look at the Mars anomaly. So here you can see these random geometric patterns that were made in which they grow their plants. And then the water canals feeding water to these areas where they grow their agriculture.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm showing you a side view of one of those canals where you can see they've heaped up the ground and then made a trench right through the middle in which they canal the water, and then they just feed it off at different distribution points to water their plants. And yeah, I'm showing a picture of fish farms that you'd find here on Earth as well, with the canals and these segmented areas in which they fence off, I guess you could say, the different species of fish, I guess you could say as well. And yeah, I'm showing you another one of those with the water canal running through the site where they've got these weird geometric shapes with the water sort of reservoirs in which they grow the fish. Now, when you look at Mars, this is a site in Medusa Fossae. It's 10 degrees south of the equator. So if you look at the equator of Mars, just like on Earth, it's a much warmer region where water and plants could have existed in the past because of the temperature and the general sort of seasonal times of year. Yeah, you can see the same sort of geometric shapes, very random, and also it looks like there's these weird canals that surround each of the smaller areas that are hollowed out, sort of smoothed out. If you take a closer look, you'll see these, they look almost like roads, but they're not. These are areas in which they've heaped up the ground and have made these trenches running throughout the area to feed what we speculate could have been water. Now, was rice or some type of agriculture grown here, some type of plants, or were these fish farms? We don't know. And the width of these canals is just like here on Earth, about 5 meters wide. And you'll see the canals intersect one another at sort of 90-degree angles. And in many areas, you'd see the one canal intersects the other where it's 90 degrees, but it doesn't continue onwards towards the opposite side, indicating that it's probably not a fracture in the surface, because the fracture would probably go right through. So that makes it even more artificial looking. Yeah, I'm showing just another part of that photograph, and you see these circular shapes, just like you did in the fish farms and the rice paddies,
Yeah.
also with the water canals running around them. So these are inside a sort of a square, larger area, these circular shapes. There's just another part of that site showing more of these circular shapes. So these aren't conventional sort of fractures. If you look at fractures in the surface, and if you look at dried out lake beds, these are very geometric and almost symmetrical. Whereas a dried out lake bed, the clay cracks up and forms these strange geometric shapes. This is definitely not one of those. We had a geomorphologist look at this site, and he said, guys, go ahead and compare it to rice paddies, agricultural farming, or fish farming here on Earth, because this defies all other explanations. This is artificial in a geomorphologist's point of view. So you can imagine, if he says, dudes, go ahead and call it what it is, then yeah, Occam's razor, man.
Yeah, I mean, when you look at those lines, you're right. Like they could not have been created by naturally by, fractures on Earth, on Mars. It just looks like there must have been some sort of ancient activity on that surface of Mars for it to leave those lines and marks
Yes,
around.
the size, the shape, the layout, the geometry, the canals, everything lines up. It's like a perfect analog. Except
Yeah,
on Mars, this is very ancient, and we don't see any
yeah.
water in these containers.
Yeah. Do you see anything else nearby this image that may lead to, let's say, like a city or some more human life, or is it just isolated to this image?
It's just isolated to a specific region in this photograph. This is
Yeah.
a large photograph. It's
Yeah,
about,
yeah.
I think, 10 kilometers in length
Okay.
and about 6 kilometers wide.
Yeah.
And this patch that we're looking at with all this geometry going on is about, I'd say, 4 kilometers wide by about 4 kilometers high. And it's
Yeah.
sort of just there, like it would be out in the countryside here on Earth, no towns and cities nearby. Out in a
Yeah.
rural area, this is what this looks like.
Yeah. On Earth, how old is this, I guess, discovery of creating these kind of shaped canals? Is it an Asian thing we've done on Earth? Does it go back thousands of years on how we've created these kind of
Well,
irrigation systems?
if you look at the way that the Romans transported water, they also built these, what do they call them, aquifers.
Yes, yeah, yeah,
And,
yeah.
and they also used to build these like canals,
Yeah.
because the terrain is hilly, and then there's a dip, and then there's a hill. So they've got to build these canals up in the air, sometimes on bridges and things, and then
Yeah.
they
Yes.
transport water like that.
Yeah. Wow.
So
Yeah.
yeah, that's as far back as I am familiar with this type of technology, and then obviously it's used today in modern times in Asia, and then wherever they do fish farming, you see
Wow.
this type of technology being used. So this could be quite recent or very ancient, but it seems untouched. There are a couple of dunes, some sand is filled in, wind erosion and weathering has taken place, but the outline is still there. That's what I found fascinating about Mars, is that in some areas it looks like total and utter devastation, and in other areas it seems untouched, but derelict. It's been abandoned for thousands of years.
Yeah.
So, as I say, this is near the equator. The most devastating sites are up in the northern mid-latitudes and down in the southern mid-latitudes. The equator seems very pristine and still sort of intact, but this is not near that large scar that was burnt on the side of Mars through that plasma discharge. So this is quite far from that. So it's sort of untouched.
So that could be the remains of an ancient type, an Egypt type civilization that were smart enough, like the Romans, to create these canals, irrigation systems, let the water flow, and fuel the life that they had built in that image that we are just looking at right now.
Very likely, yes. Very, very likely.
Fascinating.
Right. Then we get to that massive pyramid that I think Brian also presented in a podcast. I found this huge pyramid on a flat plain in Elysium Planitia. Very smooth, flat terrain, just like we'd find here on Earth in the deserts where we have these huge pyramids. I'm thinking of those in Giza in Egypt now. So yeah, I'm showing a zoomed out view, and to the bottom left corner you can see the pyramid, and then there's some really strange, sort of, you could say, sculpted landforms close by.
Yeah.
So let's take a look at that pyramid. So it's four-sided, flat top, and then on the one side, in its center, you've got like a ramp protruding out the one side. And it looks like it was covered in water for some time, and sediment settled on it. And then there was wind erosion eventually when the water subsided. And then it also looks, if you look at the base of the pyramid, it looks like there's water erosion around it, indicating it might have stood in a swamp type of environment for a very long time. So if you look at the foot of the pyramid, you can see a lot of water erosion, indicating that this possibly stood in a swamp sort of environment for an extended period of time. And also to the right of this pyramid, you can see there's like a debris field consisting of sort of blocky material, and it might be that the coating or the stones that covered this pyramid may have washed out over to the right-hand side. It's like a debris field. It looks highly eroded, so there's a lot of wind erosion. It looks like there's water erosion on it as well. And it's huge. I mean, each side is about 3 kilometers in length. And just like on Earth, there's a pyramid similar to it. And this is the one in Teotihuacan. I think I call it the Moon Pyramid, with this funny sort of ramp on the one side with steps leading up to about halfway up the side of the pyramid, and then it's flat on top. So there's another analog for you, an ancient version on Mars.
Wow. Yeah, I mean, if you look at the research we have on Mars, it's very evident and clear and conclusive that Mars was blue and green, and there was a lot of life on it, and it was stable for many, many, many years, thousands of years. And so, there's no reason why that, with that stability, there were ancient civilizations that built similar pyramid that we have on on Earth. And it you can also draw and speculate this idea that the ones who built pyramids in Egypt were aliens that came from Mars, and that may be the reason why no one on planet Earth seemed to understand how these pyramids were exactly built. But that image there, it's a very, like a starking image that it could not be something that is just natural or made by nature in that, what's around it.
Yes, this thing's got almost perfect symmetry and geometry to it. But what's difficult is that because it's so highly eroded and covered in sand and possibly silt, we can't make out any real detail, but the outline and the shape and the geometry all point to it being a four-sided pyramid with this ramp on the one side.
Yeah.
We need to excavate this to see what it is.
Yeah.
Then I found what looks like a typical step pyramid that we'd find here on Earth as well. This thing's it's a sort of a rectangular shape. It's got distinct layers or steps to it, and then in its center, it's got this protruding structure. If you take a look at it, and you see those rows and rows of blocks, some of them have started moving away and rolling down the sides. Those blocks are about 5 to 8 meters in length, and they're still, in parts of this pyramid, still tightly next to one another, just like we'd find here on Earth at some of the older pyramids. And this thing's about 200 meters long, about 100 meters wide.
Yeah.
And then, I don't know if you're familiar with the D&M pyramid that they discovered close to the face in Sardinia. But here we're looking at 3 almost similar pyramidal structures, especially the one on the left. And these things are huge. They're about 4 kilometers wide. And they arranged just like the 3 pyramids in Giza in a type of a Orion's belt star constellation geometry. And now I'm showing a comparison of the D&M pyramid and the one that I showed on Mars, the larger one of the 3. And it's got the same sort of geometry to it, like it's almost 5-sided. So there's another analog of the D&M pyramid on Mars. Then we get to the famous crater pyramid that, if I recall correctly, was discovered by Richard Hoagland and his team of researchers. It might have even been JPL themselves, I'm not sure, but it also shows a huge pyramid. It's about 2.6 by 2.6 kilometers per side at the base. It's 4-sided, neatly next to a huge circular depression about 6 kilometers in width. And there are more of these on Mars. Here's a second one that I'm showing now. It's a sort of a 3-sided pyramid directly next to another circular depression, about the same size. The one side of the base is 2.4 kilometers, and the width of this circular depression is 5 kilometers. And there's an analog of this type of arrangement here on Earth, and it's in Peru. It's called Carral Asupe. I hope I'm pronouncing that correctly. And what it shows is an ancient pyramidal ruin, and in front of it, a circular depression that was constructed right next to the pyramid, directly through the center line, just like that on Mars. So what the circular depressions were used for, I'm not sure, but the similarity is undeniable.
Yeah.
Why
those
that they have the circular depressions next to the pyramids, who knows? Could they have stored water?
could those be craters?
Look, Brian and his team have looked into this, and what came first, the pyramid or the depression? The depression or the pyramid? If the pyramid was there first, and this was a meteorite strike right next to it, I mean, this is literally right next to it, the energy that would be deployed in that explosion would have destroyed the pyramid.
Yeah.
So the hypothesis here is that that wasn't an impact from a meteorite, that these two things were constructed next to one another. Possibly the circular depression was there first, and they built the pyramid next to
Yeah.
it. For storage purposes, could have stored water, because the pyramids in Egypt were built on a water plateau. There's a lot of water under the pyramids. And then the Nile was also very close to it. And if you look at the crater pyramids on Mars, it looks like there was a lot of water in that area, just like the huge pyramid that I pointed out with a ramp on the side. There's water erosion around it, indicating these were in a water-rich environment potentially. Could the pyramids be associated with water, and was water used for some type of technology that we're yet to uncover?
Yeah.
Like those satellite photographs to show that team in Italy photographed the Giza Plateau and found all these tunnels, these huge columns under the pyramids with these spirals around the columns. And that goes all the way down, and there's water deep down underneath the pyramids. So was water used in some type of tech that we're not familiar with?
Yeah, no, they all look very fascinating, and so much, like man-made type structures.
Yes, what's intriguing is the symmetry and the geometry. Both those pyramids next to those craters are directly through the center line of that circular depression. They're perfectly aligned with the center of those circles, just like that one in Carral Asupe here on Earth.
Fascinating.
Then we get to highly eroded pyramids. I'm showing two. The one is of a potential highly eroded pyramid on Mars in Kanowski, and on the right, the Black Pyramid near the Bent Pyramid in Egypt. If you look at the Black Pyramid, you wouldn't say that was a pyramid. It's highly eroded. It's got these, so they look like little hills, and then a lot of sand surrounding them. But that there was a pyramid. If you look at a side view of it, you can see the slope of sand, and then the rows and rows of megaliths at the top and down at the base. And these megaliths are huge, just like those that we find on the other pyramids. Apparently, this pyramid collapsed because it was built on clay or very moist ground or sand. But you see those rows and rows of blocks here and there that are still visible and intact. If you look at the Kanalski pyramid, as I call it, on Mars, each side of that four-sided structure is about 6 by 6 kilometers in length. So this thing is massive. On top of the pyramid, on one of the slopes, there's a strange triangular part that's about 20 meters by 20 meters in size. It looks like a capital letter A lying on its side. Very geometric. It looks as if it was machined. Very smooth, flat surfaces. Very straight lines to it as well. And then those darker areas on that highly eroded pyramid, the Black Pyramid and then the one on Mars, you see these rows and rows of blocks. Let me zoom in closer. So here you can see those blocks. They're roughly the same size and shape, about 5 by 5 meters in size, and they're still partially covered in what looks like a plaster or cement-like material, just like the pyramids in Egypt were covered in that very smooth material, giving them that really well-defined look. And that, of course, has eroded away over time. So we just see the blocks. Here's another part of that pyramid showing the covering, perhaps, of plaster or cement. And then where it's eroded away, you can start seeing the rows and rows of blocks, roughly the same size and shape, sticking up through that material. So have you got any questions about this one before we move on, Adnan?
No, I don't. I just find it all fascinating that you have, all these stuff that is, documented history of ancient activity on Mars. I just find it so fascinating, and I'm also dumbfounded that a lot of the stuff is not talked about and not looked at, and when you compare them to activities on Earth and the history that we have from ancient civilizations and human intelligence and activity, I mean, they're just so similar. I mean, Earth and Mars, we might as well just call, Mars Earth 1.0, and
Yes.
and Earth 2.0 is what we live on. So I feel like, it's so similar to what we have on Earth. It almost feel like we are aliens from Mars in some ways, that we've just carried on from what's happened on Mars.
Yes, there's something about Mars that draws us to it, that sort of reminds us of something that we've forgotten a long time ago. And what's interesting too is that Mars, if I recall correctly, was there's a place in Egypt, in Cairo, that they call the Camp of Mars. I don't know if you're familiar with that. It was called the Camp of Mars, Egypt.
Wow.
It's very interesting.
Yeah, that's like that's too close of a
Pyramids there,
coincidence,
pyramids on Mars.
Yeah.
So yeah, we're looking at a very plain landscape on Mars, but in the center of it, there's something that pops out that's got geometry and symmetry to it. It's a sort of a square structure. This is also in Elysium Planitia, close to the huge pyramid. And if you take a closer look, you can see what appears to be an outer wall, about 30 meters by 30 meters in size. It's like a square. And inside it is a funny circular structure. Now, that would look sort of geological to you. But then if you compare it to a similar structure that we find in Peru, it's called the Chanquillo structure. It's like a fort. It's also got a roughly square outer wall, and then two strange circular structures inside. So there is another sort of direct comparison.
Yeah, they look very similar.
Yes, the one on Earth seems to have two outer walls,
Yeah.
but the one on Mars is so highly eroded and partially covered in sand, you can barely make out there might be a second wall on the inside.
And what do you think the one on Earth was used for, and what was life like in the structure?
I don't have that information at hand, Anand, but yeah, Peru is littered with these strange ruins and structures
Yeah.
that we find on Mars. It's like a duplicate of sorts. A lot of the stuff on Mars looks Incan, Mayan, but also it has a slightly Egyptian twist to it.
Right.
But I'd say it's more related to stuff we find in South America. I don't know what the purpose of this one on Earth is for, but it's also very old.
Yeah, it looks very, very ancient.
It's worthy of further study. I just don't have those facts and history at hand to talk about.
Yeah, there may have been some similarity in the evolution of these beings and their knowledge and their intelligence. Um, it's almost like, it's very hard to find a linear progress of evolution on two different planets. You can't go on a alien planet and look at history and assume that history has evolved similar to how it has evolved on Earth. They may have, they will come over here and think that we are crazy, that we shoot rocket into space and burn all these fuels, or they might find it
Yes,
fascinating because they have different materials to deal with, and they may have discovered things much more earlier in their evolution, right? But over here, we
yes,
find this of the ancient humans on Earth who have built these structures that we just looked at in Peru to the structures in Mars are strikingly similar in terms of their intelligence, their ability to create pyramids on Mars and then create pyramids on Earth, right? And that just can't be a coincidence. There must have something going on that's much more connected between Earth and Mars for us to be able to find these structures. One thing, and then to be able to see them being, done on Earth. So I think that is a very fascinating concept and information that needs to be further explored. And when we do get to Mars, I hope that we are going to these destinations that we have marked and founded and flagged, and they are studied to see what we can find. There might be mummies, caves. There might be drawings on walls. There might be a lot of information that we would want to know about.
Yes, and perhaps even ancient technology. There's a huge race to get to Mars now, and I think these guys are after something that's there. I know Elon says he'd like to make humans a multi-planetary species because Earth can just cease to exist and there goes humanity. But I think also they might be after some relics. But we don't know. I mean, these are secret societies that we're not privy to. So,
Yeah.
this triangular structure might have been a defensive structure. Why else would it have two outer walls? It looks very militaristic. So, I don't
Yeah.
know. Maybe it was, eh? And then
Yeah, maybe.
all over Mars, you find these strange depressions in the surface that don't look like circular depressions a meteorite would make, all those hexagonal depressions that electrical discharge might make. I don't know if Brian's spoken to you about that, the Electric Universe or the Thunderbolts project, where they have checked using electric discharge or plasma discharge. They can burn like weird patterns in the ground, like six-sided circular depressions, and then that huge scar on the side of Mars that spans the width of the United States. That's how large it is. They've replicated those patterns of Valles Marineris in a lab as well. So this doesn't look like a typical discharge either. This thing's got right angles to it. It's sort of hollowed out in the center. It looks like a foundation of a very ancient building that's in a shape of a cross. And it's approximately 50 meters wide. You can see what looks like the outlines of a foundation. Here and there you still see some of the blocks, and it looks as if the inside of this structure was sort of like a basement. It's not at the same elevation as the surrounding terrain. It's very smooth and flat inside as well.
Yeah.
And
Yeah, the interesting thing about this image is that when you look at everything around that image, the shape and the patterns we see on the surface of Mars is nothing similar to what this thing is.
No.
So how can, and if it was if it was an asteroid that's heading on the surface of Mars, then it would be in a round shape. So it's definitely not that. So it's like someone must have created something that looks like, a
yeah,
man-made structure.
it's like that square structure that Elon Musk was talking about. I think Joe Rogan also mentioned it. He said, we definitely have to go there and investigate this thing. And if you look at that rectangular structure, it's not even as pristine as this. So this thing warrants more attention, in my opinion, than that weird sort of square shape that they were raving about. This thing should draw a lot more attention, in my opinion, because you can still see some of the blocks. But I mean, it warrants a closer look.
Yeah.
And then in Valles Marineris itself, that huge scar on Mars, or close to it is a region called Malus Chasma. And inside it, there's nothing except flat terrain for kilometers around, and in the middle of nowhere this thing pops up. It looks like a rectangular structure. And a closer look, you can see it's got these rectangular tiles or slabs or blocks on it. It looks like the roof collapsed. Those blocks are approximately 8 meters in length each. And on the side of the structure, you can see similar size and shape, equidistant rectangular openings.
Yeah.
This thing is about 20 meters tall, and it reminds me of those strange ancient structures in Greece with those columns and then the parts on top with the roof that's missing. It looks to me like something very similar to that. Right, then we get to Argaea Planitia, which is a very strange region in Mars where we find lots of ancient megalithic remnants, especially megalithic blocks that are still next to one another in rows. Whether we're looking at ancient walls that have sort of toppled over or some type of walkway is unclear. But yeah, in this image I'm showing 2 large rectangular blocks, about 8 meters in length each, and next to each of those are 2 smaller blocks, and they're arranged parallel with one another. And then close by we've got another megalithic block with a sort of protrusion in its center, just like those that we find in South America, those large blocks with the protrusions or nubs on them.
Yeah.
Now, the odds of finding this sort of impossible. I mean, these things are still neatly next to one another, not scattered about all over the place. There's even up to the top of that row of blocks, it looks to be a smaller sort of block with a protrusion on it as well, partially covered in sand. And that we find at sites all over in the southern mid-latitudes. Those weird blocks, the protrusions in their centers. Now this is also in Argaea Planitia, and again we can see blocks neatly next to one another in rows. So we've got, again, blocks that are roughly 8 meters in length, and they have the protrusions or knobs on them. There we've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 next to one another, or 2 rows, and then to the left another huge block about 10 meters in length with a protrusion or knob on it as well. And there I'm comparing them to the megaliths at ruins down in South America, where you can see the blocks with the nubs, protrusions, or knobs on them, however you want to refer to them.
Yeah.
So there's another analog for us to compare. The ones on Mars look a little more eroded than these on Earth. Then there's another strange block. This is in Euripus Mons. It's about 12 meters across, and it's got a strange shape to it. It's not exactly square and it's not exactly rectangular. I don't know how to explain this to the listeners. It's sort of like a square block with one of the corners missing.
Yeah.
And it's got 3 protrusions on it, arranged in a triangle.
Yeah.
The top part or the top corner consists of a smaller block that seems to have moved away slightly. But if it was tightly next to the larger one, you'd get a triangle depicted on it. And again, it's similar to those strange sort of melted rocks or megaliths that we find at sites in South America, where they take those blocks and they do something to them so that it looks as if they melt them so that they fit tightly together, so you can't even get a piece of paper in between them. It's shaped like one of those huge blocks. I don't know if you can see the parallel there as well, Adnan.
Yeah, it's just dark. Like, yeah, I mean, it's just looks very similar. It's almost like someone built this on Mars. They're like, well, can you please take this to to Earth and replicate it? You know, it's kind of feel like the theme of this podcast is that, you know, we're getting closer to closer of an ancient, intelligent, living being that lived on Mars and Earth.
Mm. And it's almost as if you could say markers were left on Mars, so that if they found one day, we can discover something about our history. You'd say that these things have been placed there for a purpose, you could say. So yeah, we're looking at a site, also in Argaia Planitia, with those blocks. And here's one. It's a square block, about 5 by 5 meters in size. And in its center is a circular, smaller object. I don't know if it's a lid or whether it's a protruding part that's part of the block, but it's directly in the center. And that is just one example of dozens upon dozens of these blocks, these smaller things in their centers that I'm presenting here. Some of my YouTube subscribers have suggested these might be partially uncovered underground bunkers, with these being the entrances, the hatches or the vents. Who knows, perhaps this entire area is covered in sand and we're looking at the tops of structures that are barely sticking through the surface.
Yeah.
Because a lot of these sites are covered in sand, and we only see these blocks here and there scattered about. Could they have been blown up, tossed up in the air, landed randomly all over the place, or does sand cover these sites? And we're only seeing the tallest part of the structure sticking up above the sand.
Yeah.
So until we go there, do excavations or further research with ground-penetrating radar, we won't know.
Yeah.
Then we get to a photograph taken by the rover Curiosity of layered material that looks almost as if it has ironwork in it, like the crisscross patterns that we'd get on a bridge to strengthen it between the layers.
Yeah.
And there's some ornate design to the one side of it, making it look very artistic. There's even a piece of silver material that looks like sheet metal at the base of this thing. It looks as if it was standing up straight and then sort of cracked and fell over. But look at the distinct layers. It looks like plaster covers the one layer, and there where the plaster is broken off, you can see some of the protruding metalwork.
Yeah.
Almost like reinforcement, rebar. And it looks very artistic, this piece.
Yeah. Yeah, it does.
And if you look at the surrounding terrain, you see these normal slab type of material things, some boulders. There's even a smaller piece to the left that also looks similar to it.
Yeah.
But it sticks out like a sore finger in this terrain, like it doesn't belong there. Then we get to what looks to be a rectangular opening or entrance on the side of a mound, also photographed by the rover Curiosity. This is the photograph of the site on Mars. You can see there's a rectangular column, there's like a lintel over the top, and then the wall inside looks as if it's plastered and it's got some cracks in it.
Yeah. That's like, that can't be just by nature, like someone's been there and cut a, yeah, look at that.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's an analog. This is the tomb of Uki. It's also got this rectangular opening with rectangular columns, and it's also built on the side of a slope or a mound or a hill.
Yeah.
And if you look at the side-by-side comparison, you would swear this is on Earth.
Yeah.
The one on Mars is only about 1 meter to 1.5 meters tall, but it is covered in sand, so it could be taller.
Yeah, I mean the underground structures on Mars are fascinating, and Elon talks a lot about we could potentially build the first living city on Mars to be something that's underground. He has this company called the Boring Company that dig tunnels. And I think there is already a lot of understanding that, building underground structures on Mars might be one of the most efficient, economical way for us to shield ourselves from radiation, and create environments where oxygen can be, built for indoor facilities where life can be sustained. So I wouldn't be surprised seeing openings on Mars that maybe aliens or ancient people have used to create for all sorts of different purposes.
Yes. I don't know if you're familiar with that Israeli space intelligence officer who came out and blew the whistle on Trump that knows about underground bases on Mars and that we've been working there with aliens. Have you heard of that story?
No, but I wouldn't be surprised. I
Call
believe
it up. I can call the article up.
Yeah, do it. But
Okay,
while
I'll
you do
stop
that,
sharing.
while you do that, I want to say that Trump probably is one of those presidents. He has like every Friday night, 3 a.m. hangouts with top classified people to give him entertaining information while he enjoys a McDonald's burger. Trump's that kind of guy.
Yeah, this story went viral on all the major networks.
Yeah.
Let me just say allow. It's popping up a message here. Now I'm going to share again. My apology. I'm trying to get to that window. Screen. Right. So here it is. Former Israeli space security chief says extraterrestrials exist and Trump knows about it. This was...
I saw that, yeah.
I'm Ashed. And he talks about, in this article, underground Mars bases, and that we've been working there with extraterrestrials. So yeah, there's an interesting article. So let's go back to
Yeah, I just want to say on that, I think we're going to find very interesting stories and narrative coming out these that there is a lot of classified space programs that may have made it to Mars, may have created stuff on Mars. I think Elon's finding himself that going to Mars is no longer just an engineering challenge. It's a big military challenge. It's a intelligence challenge. I think Trump would likely see Mars as um, a savior of America because America is headed towards bankruptcy. And once Mars is thriving and Mars is trading with rest of the Earth around, mining projects and building civilizations and things like that, it can help bail America out for the next 200 years so that America can extend its powerful position on Earth.
yes,
There is a lot of that kind of politics going on. So I wouldn't be surprised if we're going to see a lot more of that kind of articles coming out about Mars and Trump's, views on things that he's been informed on.
yes. There are some commentators that actually speculate Trump might disclose UAP, extraterrestrials, etc. But yeah, that remains to be seen. We'll see if that transpires. But it's a heck of interesting. I mean, if we can mine Mars and the asteroids, it can kickstart a whole new industry for sure.
Oh yeah.
So, Adnan, like many photographs of Mars, especially the high-rise photographs taken from orbit, from the Mars Reconnaissance Orbiter, we get these high-resolution photographs, normally at 25 centimeters per pixel resolution. And if you look at those, you just see boulders and rocks and boulders and rocks. But if you take your time and look for geometry, then you find anomalies, like the one in the center of this image. And if you zoom in on it, it's got a very odd shape. It looks almost like a little boat.
Yeah, it
Look at the
does.
cabin. It's got a shape of a boat, or maybe a conning tower that's sticking up out of the sand. But if you look at the surrounding terrain and the boulders, and you take a closer look at this object, it sticks out like a sore finger.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if you agree. That doesn't look like a normal rock or boulder,
Not
especially
at all.
those around it.
Yeah.
This thing's got a shape to it. It's
Mm.
structured. It's got a rectangular dark area that could be an opening. Who knows?
Yeah. Yeah, I've seen this image before, and it's one of those ones that have really struck out as something that's not just
Yes.
a
I
nature-based
have another image of a
creation.
boat
Yeah.
that's about 18 meters long. That looks very similar to that. This is my latest discovery that I'm showing you.
Mm.
I want to refresh my presentation. So I took that one out and I popped this newer one in there.
Yeah.
But yeah, I'm familiar with the one you're talking about. Then we get to this object. If you look at the surrounding boulders and rocks, in the middle of the image, you see this rectangular object
Yeah.
that doesn't look as if it should be there. And it's
Mm.
also about 12 meters in length. It consists of two narrow rectangular parts that look very metallic next to one another with open ends. And then if you take a closer look on top of it, it looks as if there might be louvers or piping. It could even be ripped open. But this looks like part of a machine. Could it be wreckage of a failed mission to Mars that we don't know about? Or could this be ancient tech?
Yeah, looks like the wreckage of an alien ship.
It does,
Looks
but it
like the
doesn't look
yeah,
that old.
piece of it.
It,
Yeah,
it looks pretty recent.
yeah, it
And
looks.
what's
Yeah,
fascinating about these things is why are they always lying nicely on the surface as if they've been placed there?
yeah,
It's like uh, a wasteland of litter.
mm,
Mars is like the planet of litter, of wreckage, of epic destruction and
yeah, yeah,
catastrophe.
yeah. I mean, you can go back, millions of years since the universe's existence. That these planets are just litters of so many things of
Mm.
history, whether it was aliens that lived on Mars, or whether they were traveling through. You never know. What we might find like a huge war that took place while dinosaurs were hanging around on Earth, on Mars, and you have all these litters and wreckages and ships and aliens fighting, and yeah, it's just insane that we never get to hear a truthful picture of uh, what's happened on Mars until I watch your videos on YouTube and I watch Brian's documentary, and
Yes,
we're getting much more closer to what actually happened on Mars. It's really
yeah.
fascinating.
And Mars is known as the war planet. Wasn't Mars the god of war?
I think it was, yeah.
And the military camp in Cairo was called uh, the Camp of Mars. That's very strange. Yeah, like you say, Dr. Brandenburg, you are familiar with his research,
Hmm.
detected in NASA data that the orbiter detected these isotopes in the atmosphere that show uh, nuclear grade weapons isotopes at
Yeah.
two sites in the northern mid latitudes. And he speculates those were two huge nuclear explosions, equivalent to the event that destroyed the dinosaurs. That's how huge those explosions were.
Mm.
So, in this image, again, a field of rocks and boulders. But if you look nicely, you can see there's a megalith, and next to it is a long, narrow, rectangular item that looks odd. And a
Mm.
close up shows it's about 12 meters long. It's a long, narrow, rectangular item.
Hmm.
It's got a protruding part on the one side. And if you compare this to those elongated head statues that we find, I think, at Easter Island, this looks like a brow. Sticking out of it is the nose, and then the chin with the mouth lying on its side. That
Mm.
is pure speculation on my part. This could even be wreckage.
Yeah. Looks
Yes.
very interesting.
Tim Saunders, who features in Blue Planet Red, that documentary by Brian, spoke about the experiments he did with metal exposed to CO2 for extended periods of time. And
Hmm.
he finds the erosion is very irregular. It doesn't look like typical rust, for example. It's a bit different. This piece that we're looking at could be metal. It looks as if it's megalithic because of the erosion on it, but because it's been there for a while, it could be that this is metallic and it experienced that type of erosion. But it could be a sculpture of a head, who knows? Pure pareidolia, perhaps. But until we go there and stand next to this thing and analyze it, we can only speculate.
Yeah.
Then we're back in Argyll Planitia, where those weird blocks are. And in the photograph I'm showing you, there's like a plectrum-shaped object. You know, that plectrum that you play guitar with. Or an avo that's been cut in half. It's got this strange teardrop shape to it, and in its center is a perfectly circular, smaller part.
Yeah.
I don't know what that could be either. It's about 8 to 10 meters in length. And again, if you look at the surrounding terrain, the shape of this thing is totally out of place. It's as if it doesn't belong there.
Yeah.
Could be natural, but like I say, it's the only one of its kind at this site, which is huge. Right, then in this one, again in Argyll Planitia, Argyll Planitia has got some weird stuff. Right in the center of this image I'm showing, you can make out 3 rectangular objects next to one another, arranged geometrically, and it seems as if this was a larger object that may have come in at a low trajectory over the surface and then crashed into the surface, making this mound of sand and debris in front of it. Don't know if you can make that out, Adnan.
Yeah, that looks very interesting, isn't it?
Yeah, and behind it is a weird spherical object. I don't know if that's pure coincidence, but if you look at the terrain, again, there isn't really anything like this.
Yeah, looks like a wreckage.
Yeah, it looks like wreckage.
Yeah.
Look at the dark spots on those 2 outer ones,
Yeah.
and then the darker
So-
rectangular part in the center.
Yeah. Yeah, looks like wreckage.
Yeah, and I speculate it came in quite a speed at a low angle over the ground and then crashed into the surface. So some of it is covered in debris and sand.
Yeah.
Right. Then this thing, I don't know if it's an anomaly or not, but to me it also doesn't belong there. In the center of this boulder field is what looks like a dome-like object, and it's about 10 meters in length. It's got like an oval shape to it, and it's got like a rim at its base or a skirting. It looks almost like a huge shell. I don't know if you agree, Adnan, but it's dome-shaped.
Yeah, it's it looks like a heart.
Yeah, and it's also out of place.
Yeah. Yeah.
All the rocks and boulders around it are randomly shaped with these weird edges and things, and then this round thing. That to me, it reminds me so much of some type of fossil. Who knows? Part of a wreckage as well, I don't know. Then potential Stonehenge. This is in Nihilus Certus Mensae. We're looking at a mound, approximately 100 meters in diameter. It's circular shaped mound. And on top of it, we got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 large megalithic blocks, roughly arranged in a sort of oval circular shape.
Yeah.
with smaller megaliths strewn about the place. And each megalith is about 5 meters in length. So this isn't a circular depression, so it's not like a meteorite struck there and it broke up. This is on top of a mound, which infers those were placed there.
Yeah.
Obviously, we don't know. We're speculating again, but this is on a mound, and it's arranged in a strange pattern.
Mm-hmm.
And those blocks are roughly the same sort of size as well. So not like a typical meteorite impact. And then close to the Kanowski pyramid that I presented at the beginning of the presentation, we've got this semicircular structure consisting of some blocks next to one another and other megalithic blocks and things sort of arranged in a circular pattern.
Yeah.
Smaller blocks and things strewn about. That to me also looked rather artificial, because if you look at the surrounding terrain, which I'm not showing you here, it's this sandy sort of thing, totally featureless, and then this sticks out there.
Yeah.
And that's about 30 meters across. Then we get to a region called Atlantis Basin. And there's lots of these sites in Atlantis Basin with a strange surface feature that looks like a grid on top of the surface.
Yeah.
You'd say these might be fractures or mineral deposits or veins inside softer material. And as the softer material erodes away, it leaves these deposits of minerals. But then if you look at the geometry of these shapes, some are square, some are rectangular, and then there's rectangles within rectangles.
Yeah, that's very fascinating. I mean, wow, that almost like you're looking at a city like New York, which has a very fascinating grid system at nighttime. If you're looking at New York at nighttime, that image looks like that.
It does.
It's like lots of grids, lots of lines, lots of movement, lots of human activity. It's been very busy. You can tell.
Yes. It looks almost like streets lit at night. But if you
Yeah.
take a closer look at these lines, some of them are casting shadows.
Yeah.
So they could be roads, or they could be foundations of walls. I'm showing as an insert the Temple of Nablus. That also shows these geometric patterns of rectangles, rectangles within rectangles. So could these be pipes, streets, walls, foundations? And the general length of one of these is about 8 to 10 meters.
Yeah.
The spacing between lines is roughly about 8 to 10 meters. And there's just
Wow,
another
look at that
shot.
image. Wow. Yeah. Beautiful.
It is. Okay. Many might be familiar with the possible lake on Mars consisting of either water ice or water. We don't know.
Yeah.
But if you look at this thing, you can see like a shoreline, the outer edge of the lake is like a brighter material, like sand, beach sand almost. The one side of the lake is totally straight, and it's got smaller objects arranged equidistant from one another, almost like you could say mooring points. And the surrounding terrain looks like bush or trees photographed from above. I'll show you examples of those in a moment. So this lake is about 1 kilometer in length. So you can see there's also these root-like tentacles growing into what might be the water. And the plants around here have got the same sort of tentacle type of look to it, like a tree photographed from above without the leaves. And then note those smaller objects in a row on the shoreline about 25 meters apart. I don't know what those could be.
Yeah.
The resolution of this photograph is about 1 meter to 2.5 meters per pixel.
Yeah.
So you can't make out too much detail, but the way these have been arranged, to me, is also highly
Yeah.
unnatural.
We do know that Mars has a lot of frozen lakes. There's a lot of microbial life in them. There's a lot
Yeah.
of water on Mars. We know that, and there could be so much history captured in those frozen lakes, and so much, underground. If you think about cities on Earth, like we're constantly building new cities on top of old cities. Is what we're doing, right?
Yes, you see that in South America,
Yeah,
where
and
they
so
build on top of old structures. Yes.
exactly. And I think we're gonna find similar things when we get to these frozen lakes and oceans underground, and we're gonna find a lot of history.
I reckon it's possible. Look, our oceans on Earth are largely unexplored. We don't know what's in the deepest depths of the ocean. I mean, you
Yeah.
get these USOs and UAPs, these craft that just seamlessly go from traveling in the atmosphere down into the water without slowing down, with impunity, and then coming up out of the water again as if nothing went wrong. If
Yeah.
you did that with an aircraft, it would break up. Literally,
Yeah.
man, and it will slow down. These things just enter the water, gone. So maybe these things come from under the oceans, who knows? But yeah, we're looking at those tree-like anomalies that I'm talking about.
Yeah.
And they're 600 meters wide.
Mm-hmm.
I've seen the equivalent photographs of this site of high-rise that have photographed these same anomalies.
Mm-hmm.
These were photographed at a low resolution a long time ago by the Mars Global Surveyor, not the Mars Reconnaissance Orbiter. And it appears this might be seasonal because the high-rise photographs show just the sort of branch-like, they call them spiders. But in this photograph, you can see what looks like foliage. It's actually even casting shadows around it. It's like it's got leaves and stuff. But the newer high-rise photographs don't show that. So we speculate this is plant life and it's seasonal. It will grow leaves at some point in the year, and then at other points you only see the outlines. There's another one consisting of 3 grouped together and also approximately 600 meters wide. So these could be trees or they could be shrubs or bushes growing on the surface.
Yeah.
But we know the gravity on Mars is a bit less than on Earth, so these could be quite tall. And here
Hmm.
I'm showing a photograph of trees photographed from above on Earth, and it shows the same sort of branch-like fractal patterns with the foliage. And if you compare the two,
Yeah.
you can see the similarity.
Yeah. I mean, that's like, you don't really need any more evidence than that. It's just right there, you know?
Yeah, and according to NASA, this is venting, I think CO2 venting onto the
Yeah.
surface. But
Yeah.
that to me looks more like a type of a plant growing on Mars.
Yeah.
In my opinion, we could be wrong, but the
Yeah.
similarity is undeniable.
We just need to heat Mars a bit more, and then boom, you can see life accelerate in these frozen oceans,
Yes,
lakes, and rivers
yes. I
like
mean,
crazy.
Elon suggested a while ago to detonate nuclear bombs on the planet at the
Yeah.
poles to melt the ice.
Yeah.
I don't know if that's such a good idea, though. We could destroy some type of life form there, and I don't think we want to do that.
Yeah. Or you can have you can replicate nuclear fusion technology that you can create nuclear fusion technology that replicates the sun, is what I want to say,
Yes,
and you can deploy them in the orbit of Mars
yes.
that can act as sun and heat up the planet and control the temperature and keep it consistent and sustainable over thousands of years, and then that will
Mm.
naturally just get it all bubbling and warming up and going. And yeah, I guess with Elon's idea of using nuclear weapons to do it is, yes, you are going to cause a lot of damage and destroy
Mm.
certain things, and but you can also do it in ways that, yes, there's going to be some damage, but you can minimize that damage, and the return is much more greater. You're accelerating the warming up of Mars much more faster.
Yes, the biosphere, that's right, yes.
Yeah, so there's
It's an
different ways you
idea.
can do it. Yeah,
I read an article a year or two ago about aerogel. It's this gel that they've developed that doesn't weigh much, doesn't take up much space. You can take it to Mars. You can then spread this gel out into thin panels. Then they become foam. And apparently, this foam protects you from the sun's radiation. But it also traps heat. And they say you can build domes with these things. And if you build on the equator of Mars, you don't even need artificial heating inside these domes. The sun will heat these environments up inside to an extent where you can actually grow plants and you can survive. It's called aerogel. I don't know if you're familiar with that material. It doesn't weigh much, and you can take it all there and make these panels of foam. It's an alternative to living underground in those lava tubes.
yeah, yeah,
So yeah, that's another interesting material that could be used. So yeah, Adnan, we're looking at a strange disc-shaped anomaly photographed basically from an angle from the side. It's not a top-down view. And it shows this disc nestled there on the side of a ridge, consisting of these strange dunes, if you could call them dunes. I don't know what they are. They look more like vines with these two dark windows. And this thing is 110 meters across. And my friend Thomas Mikey Jensen did some research on this, because NASA said, no, man, this is an artifact of the photograph. But he found a photograph of this site taken a year later, and that thing is still there. So whatever this thing is, it looks like a disc with these two dark windows on the side. Could that there be sort of like a base, like a huge building that's covered in sand? We're only seeing the top. Or could that be an observation outpost looking out over this huge valley? But that thing doesn't look like a regular dune.
Yeah.
This thing's been around for decades. People have been talking about this thing for a long time. And I don't know, to me, every time I see it, I see the Jupiter 2 from that series. Remember Jupiter 2, that UFO that they used to travel around in? Yeah.
Yeah.
It's actually called the Jupiter 2 anomaly. But
Yeah,
I thought I'd
it
throw that
looks
one
like a
in. It's
UFO
quite
to me. It looks like a wreckage of a UFO that's crashed on Mars. It's what I see.
It could be a craft. It could be an outpost. It could be the top of a building.
Yeah.
I would love to go and walk around this thing and see
Yeah,
what it is.
that'd be fun.
Yes.
So many images of Mars and so many different things. It's crazy.
Here's one of those caves
Yeah.
on the side of a mound. And yeah, we're looking at a huge opening on the side of a mound, about 820 meters wide, and a smaller opening next to it. And then directly opposite the opening is this darker material on the surface that seems to be ejected out of this opening. Now, we can speculate, could this mound be a structure that's covered over in sand? And this there is the opening to one of these underground bases, for example. And this is venting that's blowing the lighter material on the surface away, exposing the darker material underneath. So there's a closer look at that opening. It's huge. Can you imagine standing there?
Yeah.
Wow. It'll take you like half an hour to walk from one side to the other.
Yeah.
Maybe not that long, but yeah, I mean, it's huge.
Mars also has thousands of caves. We know that from volcanic activity. Mars now, I think recently we've discovered that it has water-based caves. The caves have been created from thousands of years of water flowing through. We know that Mars has thousands and thousands of openings as well. So that's also another interesting thing about Mars is you have lots of openings to the underworld, you know?
Yes, and a couple of years ago, near Olympus Mons, that huge volcano on Mars, extinct volcano, there's a pit that was ejecting this smoke-like material, but huge amounts of it for an extended period of time. And people were actually contemplating that could have been some type of terraforming effort.
Yeah.
Because Mars's volcanoes are long extinct. So if it wasn't a volcano, what was causing that venting?
Yeah.
And that was hundreds of kilometers long, that cloud that was being vented out of this pit. And it extended for a long time. It was there for a couple of weeks, if I can recall correctly. I was monitoring it.
Yeah.
I actually suggested they might be right, that it might be trying to terraform. I don't know. Then we looking at a rover Curiosity photograph, and it shows what looks like a bamboo stick lying up against a boulder. If you take a close look, you can see there might be segments on this stick. That's why I say I compare it to bamboo. But It's a rod or a stick. And why is it there?
Yeah, it's amazing that it has uh, preserved itself in that very fragile form as a stick, a long stick, especially on a surface that is so harsh and everything kind of breaks down, um, and it's all rust, and so it's very interesting that that shape, a very thin, long stick-like thing, just leaning on a piece of rock. It's fascinating that it has survived.
Yes. And there's also a strange sort of like sheet metal parts lying at its base that also seem to be out of place. But look, yeah, that could be stone, a slate lying there.
Yeah.
But that too looks highly unusual. But that stick, it's I don't know, it's literally a needle in a haystack, or a sore finger sticking up out of the surface there.
Yeah, it is. Yeah.
And then another curiosity, a rover photograph shows a sort of a rectangular, multi-sided or faceted object that looks almost like a sarcophagus, in my opinion.
Yeah.
It's got a very geometric shape. It's got a ridge line that runs across the top at a 90-degree angle to the one side.
Yeah.
It's almost cut like in a diamond shape.
Yeah.
But that too doesn't look like a typical rock or boulder, in my opinion.
Looks like a Cybertruck.
It does, doesn't it? Yeah.
Yeah.
A wreckage?
Or like a nuclear submarine.
Yes,
Shape, you know.
those stealth ships.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's interesting. That's a cool observation.
Yeah.
And
Whoa.
then
Look at that.
this is on the right. We're looking at another rover curiosity photograph here of what looks like rusted sheet metal. I've got an insert in this picture showing what rusted sheet metal looks like, pardon me, on Earth. And if you look at the way the rust chips away,
Yeah.
it looks very similar to the way that the material photographed on Mars chips away as well. So this looks like a structure that was covered in cement or plaster-like material. It's eroded away, exposed this potential metal, and it started eroding away, just like rust would do on Earth.
Yeah.
Got
That.
layers here as well,
Yeah. That.
parallel layers.
Yeah.
Fascinating. Could it be mineral deposits inside softer material? The softer material eroded away and then left the mineral deposits? Maybe. We need to go there and stand next to this thing, break a piece off and see what it is.
Yeah.
And there's another fragment that looks metallic. It's got like a L shape to it. It's uniformly thick. It's got a 90-degree angle, and some parts of it have either broken off or rusted away. Behind it is also a strange rectangular part. But I don't know how anything like this would form in nature. What do you think, Adnan? Is that an anomaly?
It sure is. I mean, look at it.
It looks like a frame,
It does. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
a part of a frame. Very
Yeah.
cool. Can you
Very.
imagine if you collected this piece, what it would be worth here on Earth?
Oh man, like, I've seen some really cool auctions for space,
Wow.
like space asteroids, Mars rocks. Oh man, like that's the thing that this is the thing that I don't think people understand, that if you get to Mars, you can create some sort of value and some monetary system, which is information system of exchanging information, transaction. The value of that is gonna be just ridiculous, right?
Mm,
And
mm,
that's the thing, you can just show up and say, well, I own Mars, and I'm the government on Mars, and it's worth multi gazillion dollars, and it's worth, 1 million times more than Earth, because we've got all these crazy things that you can use for military purposes, for intelligence, for science, for technology. You can do this, you can do that. It's just going to blow everyone's mind in a new dimension that most people can't handle, I think.
yes. One one thing that does concern me a bit is, look, if there was a civilization on Mars and it died a horrible death, I think that civilization needs to be treated with some level of dignity, maybe. And I hope that they respect the history, the potential rich history on Mars, by
Yeah.
looking after these artifacts, by
Yeah.
being good, overseers of this stuff, and that it isn't really just abused and destroyed and
Yeah.
whatever. You know what I mean? But I mean,
Yeah.
obviously, there's going to be things there that you can salvage and possibly sell. But as long as you treat the potential civilization that once thrived on Mars with respect that it deserves, then why not? Yeah.
You would hope so. So far, I don't think there's a lot of people showing any respect to what's on Mars. And that narrative is probably driven by this idea that there is nothing on Mars. And it's just rocks, and there was never any ancient civilization, and there's no evidence of this. There's no evidence of that. That's, and we know that in human history, people have intentionally destroyed history in ways to recreate it and rewrite it. You think about, like, during World War II, Hitler destroyed a lot of history and a lot of things.
Books
You
were
look,
burnt.
yeah,
Yeah.
you look at the Colosseum. The Vikings came into the Roman Empire and destroyed a lot of the things. They destroyed the Colosseum, the half of it. It's still standing, and there are good people in the world who preserve those things. They have an interest on those things, and I think when we get closer to being on Mars, or we are on Mars, I think there will be a lot of pressure by people in making sure that we preserve Asian civilization and structures, and we keep them as historic things on Mars, and we don't just go and build on a lot of stuff without, excavating, understanding, and creating room for scientists to study. So I hope there's a mixture of, I think there's going to be cycles, for a period that everybody's interested in, the fact that we've got there. Then there's a period that there's going to be a political war between, who's going to be there, how we're going to build structures, laws, what are we going to recognize, who's the government, who runs the show on Mars. And then there's going to be a layer of scientific discovery, research, more flights, scientific archaeologists going on Mars and discovering things and learning things, YouTubers. There's just going to be layer and layer and layer of this for the next, 100 years.
Yeah, and just like, I guess, here on Earth, you get those that will preserve these things, document them, put them in museums of sorts, And then you'd get those that will sell these things off as artifacts at auctions and things. I suppose you'll get that there as well.
Yeah.
Yeah, you're right, Adnan. Yeah,
But
we're looking at sorry, continue.
no, no, you go for it. Yeah.
Okay. Here's a rover curiosity photograph of megalithic blocks and slabs that look very similar to those that you'd find in Pumapunku. I hope I'm pronouncing that correctly. If you go to Pumapunku, there's all these megalithic blocks and slabs lying all over the place. Here we're looking at something very similar. There's one block in the front, in the foreground. Then there's a huge slab towards the middle on the background. And right there in the background is another block with a sort of a ridge. What do you call that? Like a relief cut on it? What do you call
Yeah.
that? Like a bevel.
Mm.
And then to the right there in the top right, is another block that you can barely make out. But this looks like a site that you'd find here on Earth, in the desert, with these blocks scattered about, some broken, some intact. But yeah, fascinating. Absolutely a beautiful place.
Yeah.
Then this is from Blue Planet Red, Brian's documentary.
Yeah.
Tim
Yeah.
Saunders
Yeah.
built a 3D model of this weird anomaly that looks like it has a hatch on it, and on the one side a pipe sticking out.
Yes.
And this is when he spoke about testing metal in various environments, and then in a similar Martian environment, how it would erode. And he says this is what it would look like. So that there could be a piece of metal that just eroded or corroded away.
Yeah.
But look at that strange pipe sticking off the one side at 90 degrees. What sort of process in nature puts a round pipe on the side of a thing that looks like it has a hatch on it?
Yeah, it does. Yeah, Brian did such a good job of covering that in his documentary, and he talked about it on my podcast. And the 3D recreation of that was so fascinating to watch. To the amount of evidence that these people, researchers, go into in discovering, what's on Mars. It's not just looking at image and going, oh, look at this. This looks interesting. It's not that. It's actually very backed analysis with science and evidence, which is very fascinating. And that's one thing we should do more of. We should replicate the stuff that we see on Mars on Earth, and really, get into the details of, what material we're dealing with, what material is on Mars, and re-engineer these things into new technology and things that can, do much more greater things, whether it's strength or, the size of structures we can build from these materials. And that really fast tracks the research that we can do, and we can target the specific things we should be prioritizing to study on Mars when we get there.
Yeah, I know that could even be a turret. Who knows, eh?
Yeah.
I've actually spent a lot of time recreating these anomalies in 3D models in Adobe Dimension. Because what's nice about these high-rise photographs is that they give you the elevation angle of the sun at the time of when the photograph was taken. You can work out from the shadow length how tall the thing is. You've got pixels per centimeter to measure the item, so you can actually go and replicate it in a 3D model. And I've got dozens and dozens of these things that I've recreated in 3D models, all available on my YouTube and on X. And I've
Yeah.
actually created a game called Mars Explorer
Oh,
in,
cool.
in Unreal Engine 4,
Yeah.
where you, as a visitor to Mars, explore Mars and you discover all these artifacts, and you can actually view them as if you were really there on Mars at the exact shape and size that they would be if you were on Mars.
Yeah, it's really cool.
We can have a look at that towards the end of the podcast if there's still time.
Yeah, I mean, are you done with the presentation? You have more things to go through?
Not much. I'm about 95% done, 96%
Yeah,
done.
well, let's wrap it up. It's been super fun. Well, I think we've been talking for 3 hours now, or a bit short than that. So let's wrap it up, and then you can tell everybody where they can find more of your content and share with us your YouTube channel. Go for it.
Sure. All right. Just before we do, yes, that famous metal pipe.
Yes, yeah.
Yeah, that looks totally out of place as well.
It
So
does.
it's not a cone, it's slightly covered in sand, like it's lying in a
Yeah.
small dune.
And
But anyway,
this is a rover image on Mars.
yeah,
It looks like a cylinder. It could be like an underground opening. Could be wreckage, metal-based wreckage, but it doesn't fit in that image, and
yeah.
it feels very much out of place.
Okay. Adnan, do you want to continue with the presentation or are we calling it here?
Up to you. If you want to show more things on the images, let's do that. If you want to wrap it up, we can wrap it up as well.
Okay, let's see. How many slides have I got left? We're basically right at the end. There's about 6 slides remaining.
Yeah, go for it. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, we're looking at 2 wheels.
Yeah.
The one in front,
Yeah. Huh.
perfectly circular in shape. It looks like it's uniform in thickness, like a wheel you'd find on a train coach. And then
Yeah.
in the middle of it is a brighter circular part,
Yeah.
like where it joins to the axle.
And the color of that object is different to the colors we see around the other objects. Around
Yes,
all
and
the other
it's
objects.
and all the other rocks and boulders have got their regular shapes, except these 2 round discs.
Yeah.
And then this part to the left, it looks like a little totem pole. It's
Right.
like a thin rectangular structure with 4 spherical balls
Yeah.
mounted on the one side in a row, spaced evenly apart. That thing there is about 20 centimeters long.
Interesting.
Oh, and just as a footnote, Adnan, I just want to mention that a lot of these discoveries were actually done by other Mars researchers and not by myself. So I just want to shout those guys out.
Yeah.
If I haven't given their names, it's not because I'm being nasty or anything. It's just, it's so convoluted as to who discovered what and when
Yeah.
that it's sometimes impossible to say who did. So just a shout out to those guys.
Yeah.
A
no,
lot
thank
of these things I'm just highlighting again in this presentation. Obviously, I've upscaled these with more modern image upscaling software, so they look a little more pristine and the details are just a little more pronounced.
Yeah.
So there's the famous Sasquatch on Mars. People always used to say that looks like a Sasquatch, about 2 meters tall, but it's actually about 12 centimeters in length. It looks like a woman with her arm coming around, holding something on
Yeah.
her chest or lap, and
Mm.
then her legs are folded as she's sitting on a smaller rock underneath her.
Interesting. Yeah.
So that there could be natural, but also it
A
looks so
carving.
familiar.
Some form of carving, like ancient, like,
A little statuette, maybe, yeah.
yeah. Or it's just the odd angle. Could be anything.
Yes, yeah. But
Mm.
that too looks anomalous.
Yeah, it
So it
does.
makes it into the book of Mars anomalies.
Yeah, especially
Right.
especially the arm piece looks very like the shoulder and the arms and the
Yes.
ankle and the hand looks very similar to a full length arm.
Yeah. And the head slightly tilted over as well.
Yeah.
That's very, very odd. Right. Then we get to a rover curiosity photograph of what appears to be metallic debris.
Yeah.
It's very silver. The objects have got this silver appearance, very smooth. And then as you would rip, a soda can or something, it's got these tears in it,
Yeah.
like you'd see in torn sheet metal. Strange twists
Yeah.
and bends, like it's been blown apart.
Mm-hmm.
And there's a strange item that looks almost like a fossil, really. But if you have a closer look, it's got like a pipe, elbow joint on the one side,
Yeah.
and then it's also ripped.
Mm.
The outer layer's been ripped. Some parts are protruding out, others are bent in, where
Yeah.
the rips are on this strange, I don't know, what would you call it? Petrol tank?
Yeah.
And then Buzz Aldrin famously quoted, "We've got to go to Phobos. There's a monolith there." Remember that interview in which he said that?
Yeah. Yeah. I do.
If you do analyze the photograph of Phobos, it's a very smooth, flat surface with a couple of depressions here and there.
Yeah.
But to the top north part of that moon, you've got a little rectangular object, and it's about 20 meters wide,
Very shiny.
and it doesn't look like anything else on this
Yeah.
moon.
Looks like wreckage
So
of some sort.
could
And
that be the monolith that he was talking about? And how
yeah.
did he know it was there?
Yeah. Wow.
Fascinating.
Yeah. Very fascinating.
Then we get to a strange anomaly photographed by the rover Curiosity. Joe White discovered this. It looks like a dragonfly.
Yeah. It does. Yeah.
I don't know if there's a part sticking off the bottom that could be moving because it's slightly blurred and
Yeah.
transparent, but it's got a long tail
Mm-hmm.
and two smaller, like fin-like parts just behind the head in
Yeah.
the shape of a dragonfly
Yep.
without the wings.
Mm.
Maybe they're there, but we just can't see them.
Yeah.
And that thing could be any size. We don't know how far it was from the rover when this photograph was taken.
Yeah.
And then this, Joe White and myself discovered, it's like a delta-shaped bright object in the Martian sky with a long, narrow beam pointing towards the surface. It looks like it could be a searchlight or it could be a contrail. But it looks like a contrail. Some parts are thinner, some parts are thicker.
Yeah.
And it's got a strange protruding part off to the the left-hand side. I don't know what that is, but it's also highly irregular, not a normal cosmic ray burst or dead pixels on the
Wow.
CCD.
That looks amazing in the sky like that.
And now we're just looking at a close-up.
Yeah.
Okay, then Mars varnish. On Earth, this strange dark material covering rocks looks
Yeah.
familiar to that strange dark material that covers rocks in the Vegas, Nevada region. Some
Yeah.
petroglyphs have been carved into those rocks here on Earth. I'm
Yeah.
just showing a comparison between the two.
Yeah. Yeah.
And that's left by traces of microbial life on Mars.
Yes.
NASA admits it's there, but they don't want to admit what's causing it. They say they need to investigate this further, and results are inconclusive. You know the old story.
Yeah. 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 Yeah.
And then just the last anomaly that looks like a mangrove horseshoe crab.
Yeah.
It looks like a oiling can as well, and that thing is about the size of a football.
Yeah.
It's got this strange thing sticking off the side like a mangrove horseshoe crab tail.
Yeah.
And with that said, we've reached the end of this presentation.
That's amazing. Thank you for that, John. That was
It's a
just
pleasure.
amazing. There's so much on Mars that you've taken us through in this podcast, and just man, that's just makes me more excited about Mars.
It does.
How can you not be so excited about what's happened on Mars? What can we find? What can we do with it? The future of Mars as a planet, how that shifts our knowledge about Mars on Earth. It's just fascinating.
Yeah, as I say, we don't know what these things are for sure. We need to actually stand next to these things, pick them up, walk around on them, analyze them to determine what they really are. But for now, because of the lack of data and information, we can only speculate what they might be.
Yeah, that's exciting. I can't wait to see more of your videos on YouTube. Tell us where we can find your YouTube videos. What's your username on YouTube?
Okay, on YouTube, search for Jean Ward.
Yeah.
On X, I'm at Jean Ward Mars. And then I've got a website, megalithic.mars.com. That features all the images in all my videos.
Perfect. Well, thank you for coming on the show.
That's it. Adnan, thank you for the invitation. It was wonderful, man.
Yeah, well, I can't wait to have you back.
Okay, dude. I look forward to it. And then also, I'd love to see the shorts
Yeah.
that you make of these podcasts. Those are very insightful as well.
Oh, yeah. Well, I'll make a lot of those and I'll flick them to you and you can use them as well. So feel free to use them.
Thank you.
Good stuff. All right. Bye, everyone.